Can you hear me? Thank you again for coming tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for the evening. He is a musician. He's a filmmaker. He's a founder and CEO of Obsidian Creative Studios. Splits his time between Seattle and Atlanta. It's our pleasure to welcome Winfield Ezell Jr. Let's give it up.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? All right then, all right. Back in the day, if this was Fremont and it was a Nectar, we would have had to get a little bit louder than that, but we'd have had the band with us though, so it'll be a little bit different. But man, it's so good to be here because I am a Seattle filmmaker, and I want to say that starting out first and foremost and right up front, because this is really where I learned to tell stories. Now don't get me wrong. In Alabama, my grandma used to tell stories all the time. So, I mean, I had some background in that. That's kind of how we pass things on in Alabama. But first and foremost, I want to show y'all the man behind the whole thing. That's this guy right here. Winfield Ezell Jr. right around, I guess that would have been maybe, we think it's between 9 and 11. I'm not quite sure. But that was the man behind this whole thing right here. And just about a year ago, I was reading a book and I ran across this quote that said, "The ancestor to every action is a thought." And that's the way this little dude moved right here. If he thought it up, he could do it, So in a lot of ways, when I start off, and I talk to young cats, I tell them, hey man, just think about it. Just think of it. Just think of it and do it and then implement it. And that's all you got to do. So he's the one that set me out on the vision, because at that age, I wanted to touch 1 million people in a positive way. That was all I knew. Now, why 1 million? Because I thought that was a lot. I thought that was a whole lot. And the way I thought to do it was through politics. Because I was a little dude. My dad used to have me out canvassing neighborhoods for the local city councilmen and for the state legislatures. And I was like, I'm going to be the president, right? I was the little dude that when you ask who's he going to be, I'm going to be the president of the United States. So now, this is about that thought and that action. But what I really want to talk about is the power of vision, right? Because that was his vision, right? So much to the point where I had a plan, right? I did. And I said, because all I really knew about politics, was that if you got the most votes, you win. So I calculated, and I was like, well, if I start campaigning now, by the time I'm old enough, because all I knew was handing out flyers and wearing buttons, right? So I was like, man, I get some buttons made up, and from now till I'm old enough to be president, I should meet a lot of people. And I'll just campaign, and by then I'll have all these votes. I mean, and I really meant this. Now, when I asked my mama to give me the button machine, she was like, what you need a button machine for? Well, because I'm going to be campaigning for president. She was like, look here. Go sit down somewhere, do your homework, clean up your room, cut your short pants off, your school pants, cut them off the short pants, and go on outside and play. Because you ain't getting no machine, making no buttons, running, So I was like, okay. But it's not really about the little boy who thought he was bold enough and bad enough to be president. It was the power of vision, right? So now we look, Ezell for 2008. So I'm going to do a little math with you real quick just to tell you how I got there, so you don't think this is just a funny little story about a funny little boy. So I found out, and remember we didn't have Google and Siri and the internet, so I don't even remember how I found it. Probably encyclopedia. My grandma had those, So you had to be 35 years old. So I calculated. I was like, okay, I'll turn 35 in 2003, December. I don't think that's enough time. I don't know what the paperwork is like. I don't know what I got to do. So let's get the next presidential election is the one I'll get in, which was 2008. Now, the power of vision is this. When did we have our first black president? 2008. You see what I'm saying? The power of vision is what I'm here to talk about right now, okay? So, I mean, he didn't know that, but that's what it did. So That's not really what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about content. So in order to talk about content, let's get on the same page first. What is content, right? Videos, films, music, articles, blogs, what is it? King. Content is king, exactly. And so I was doing a speech one time for an organization called Girl Tank in Atlanta, and I was doing this, and I was talking about what is content and the power of content. There was a room full of female social entrepreneurs, and I was like, man, use content to get your message out there, because you can touch people, because if you tell them your stories and they relate to it, guess what? Not only will they come back and see you, whatever that means, click, like, whatever, but they'll also come back and they'll tell people about it and bring other people, and that's kind of how this whole thing works. So if y'all can do that, man, hey, you're good, right? So I'm going on this, and this is content. So I'm telling them everything is content. If you write your notes down, man, take a little snapshot of your notes, put that up on Instagram and say, hey, man, we working today. That's content. So everything is content. Your research is content, everything. So then I was, the next day I was looking, I said, man, that's hype, man. I told them what all content was. And I was new at Twitter. Now, I don't know how many cool Twitter people are here. Twitter was old school for me. I still don't quite get it. Unless somebody's standing there and say, hey, you should tweet that. I don't know. But when I looked back and I was trying to research Twitter at the time, I realized that there was a young lady out there that I would say something and she would tweet it. I don't even know how fast, because when I'm looking at the time, I'm like, she had to be tweeting that while it was going on. So all of a sudden, I realized that content was even happening as it was coming out of my mouth. It's moving that fast right now, So I was like, okay. This content thing is, yes, I was a visionary. I felt like content was it. Content is king. I knew that, so I was like, okay, all right. So then I told him, I said, well, you got to know who your content is for, right? Who is your content for? It's for your audience. If you're a band, it's for the people that are coming to your shows, or if you're selling records, it's for the people that are buying records. If you're a filmmaker, it's come to my screening, download my film on iTunes. Once we get it there, click likes, tell your friends about it. Let's put together a screening somewhere else. Who else is content for? Content is for you, because your content and your research and the way people interact with your content then tells you what your relationship is like. We like this, we don't like that, we feel that. We will share this, but this right here, I watched it, but I didn't click like. I saw it, but I didn't share it with nobody, And so when I look at what is your content for, I had to think then again, what is the power of content, right? What can content do? So I thought about it from the perspective of me being a filmmaker and me being in bands here in Seattle and playing Fremont. And I started thinking that whenever I made content, I always thought about what it was going to be like. What was the person going to do when they saw it, when they heard it? If I'm on stage, I don't want everybody. I know for this, you guys are supposed to be sitting like this. But if me and Alter States of Funk was up here right now, if y'all was sitting like this, my intent has not been accomplished. You know what I'm saying? I need to see a few heads bobbing, some fingers snapping, and if I don't see a few people with their eyes closed and not here with me right now, then I've done something wrong. So then I realized that, man, content is for everybody, and the purpose of content is connecting. So back when I worked at Microsoft, I worked for a company called Victory Studios over there, man. Victory Studios is a friend, and I'm going to tell y'all why. Because a lot of us filmmakers was working over at Victory Studios. What's up, Mark Brent? What's up? Kirk, you wasn't over there, but I know you done, many of your work has come through there from a couple of different ways. A lot of us were working over there and able to do the things we did because they gave us a paycheck on a regular basis, and sometimes not so regular, but we're not here to talk about that. So I was working at Microsoft one day, and I was doing this presentation, and really I was just the camera guy in the back of the room. And there was a professor there, Mohan Sani from the Kellogg School of Business. And he was doing something, he talked about marketing. And it was marketing in a connected world. And as he was talking, and I'm sitting in this room, and I'm sitting here thinking, because when I went to Microsoft, I was like, all the smart people work at Microsoft. All the training, they know what's going on. So as he's doing this presentation and he's leading prompts and everything, and I realized that the way he's talking about marketing in a connected world is the way I look at content. Because I was an editor. So in the editing world, 20% ends up on the screen. Kirk, if I can get an amen. And 80% ends up on the floor. Y'all heard the cutting room floor, right? 80% ends up there. But I was like, man, those of us who are editors, man, it was some good stuff on the cutting room floor. I didn't know where this was going. You know, I didn't know if it was PG-13 or whatever. But some good stuff on the editing room floor. And when the internet first came about, for those of us who remember dial-up and when we used to have to render, and you know, you take those render naps and you edit and you're like, okay, render, and I wake up and check and see if it's done. I was like, all of these things that I have, like when I interview somebody and talk to them and tell their story, I'm interviewing them for like 15, 20, half hour, and if it's real good, 45 minutes, but I'm only putting about 2.5 minutes of this on the screen. That's all that's making it out there, and I got all this good stuff. And I was like, the internet, this gives me a place that I can put this stuff, and then I can find out things about them. And right around this time when I was having all these great ideas, that's right around the time the dot-com bubble burst, right? And so I'm in all of these places like the Digital Entertainment Network, out of business. NBC.com, firing everybody. So it was like, okay, hurry up and wait, young fellow. But I saw Professor Sani give this presentation about content in a connected world, right? When we want to reach, everybody's connected, but we want to talk to that person. And then that person becomes our champion and talks to those other people. I was like, that is something that we can use. That is something that me as a filmmaker who's always trying to get people in seats, me as a musician and in bands who's always trying to get people to come through the door, who's always trying to get people to share our music, and not necessarily then for the purpose of any monetary value, but just for the purpose of the next time we get together, there's more people. And I realized that now, man, wow, this was it. So content, storytelling, connected world, that was in 2003. So I put that in a box. I ended up doing the program again where he was speaking and he had his slide deck in a little, handout. So, they were throwing them away at the end. So I said, I'm going to put this in a bag because this marketing in a connected world and content, because he talked about it no longer being a monologue, no longer being linear. He talked about your customers being very knowledgeable. Your customers may be your audience, maybe whoever who is interacting with your content, because now they can get feedback. Now they can say, I like this, I don't like this. They can tell the story themselves. Man, when I was there, I had a good time. My goodness, it was there. If you wasn't there, you better be there next time. That's better than anything we could say, because we're supposed to say that, right? So I was like, okay, I can dig that. It's about to be good for the storytellers. So now where I'm talking content, let's start talking storytelling, because I believe storytelling is at the core of content. If you can tell a good story, you can touch this brother right here, just like that. You know what I mean? If you can tell a good story, you can get somebody to do what you want them to do. Now, us as filmmakers, we've been doing that. If I write a horror story, I want you to be scared. If I'm playing a funk record, I want you to get down. You dig? And that's what I mean, is we, the artists, are the ultimate storytellers. And that's why I put this slide in here right here, right? Because, believe it or not, when we add that storytelling and we fix it up with marketing and advertising and we start tracking numbers and how many hits and conversion rates and likes and reach and yield and all of those words that the cats who hold the money strings need to know and hear in order to be able to release them. It's really about this right here, because truthfully, it's about intent and call to action, right? We don't really care if the mouse likes the cheese or not. This right here isn't about, hey man, I fed a nice mouse some cheese, and I'm not condoning what this thing does to mice, okay? I just want anybody, my people in here that's down, this just illustrates the point. It's about something is supposed to happen. The mouse is supposed to see the cheese, want the cheese, and despite the fact that it's sitting on a metal little lever that's going to release that, and that bar, if you've ever set one of these things, watch your fingers, because it don't know finger from mouse. I'm just letting you know that now. It's supposed to get that cheese regardless of the fact that that bar is going to come down and slap them. And those of you who have ever set a few of these understand that the mice sometimes get away with the cheese. I don't know. So what I want to talk about now, the power of storytelling, but what happens when you put intent and a call to action? Well, now see, we can get precise, right? And now we can start following those things and tracking those things. We can now say, hey, if you want to reach 500 more customers in a month, we can track that, right? What stories do I need to tell in order for 500 people? Because now we can say if we have 500 people and we get a 10% conversion rate, which is great, that means 50 people will follow our call to action. And if that's how many people that you need, if you need 10% of those people to buy a house, 5 people, because you know that one of those people is actually going to close, well, if I can say I can deliver 500 eyes to you, as my man said in Entourage, would that be something you'd be interested in? So that's what this is about. Now, why filmmakers? Why musicians? Because every time we walk out, why artists? Because every time we walk out, we have an intent and a call to action. When we get to the bridge, get down harder. Snap your fingers, sweat. When you come to my movie, laugh, cry, be sad, be happy, be inspired. When you see my painting, come to the museum to see it. Look at other people's paintings that look like mine. We are the architects of the call to action. We are the architects of intent. Which brings me to this next slide. For my filmmakers, for my musicians, for my artists, the last thing I wrote, which I thought it was kind of cool, I went with it. And that was saying, because we always looked at as starving artists, but let's be eating experts now, right? So those of you who are in executive positions, you should be looking for the artists in your local community. We like to throw the word creative community around. We like to throw the word creative, our creative economics, and what is our creative community? How is it adding to the bottom line? Our creative culture. But usually they track that by how much money is the creative economy bringing in. But we have to reach out to those people who touch the people in the community. A good friend of mine is not here today, Heath, so I'm going to put him on the spot. Great filmmaker. Great filmmaker. Just got a job at Amazon as a producer. I know that they have a diamond in the rough. Not even in the rough. I know they have a diamond. The rough part is if they're going to see it or not. This brother taught me how to organize a vision so well, how to be passionate about something, but look at it as information so that you can yield the time, so that you can get enough shots off, so that you can tell your story in the right amount of time, because we only got a little bit of money. So filmmakers, musicians, executives, now it's time, and that's why I said from a 360 perspective to bring it all the way back home. Because the 360 perspective means it's all as important. It's no longer linear. Have the idea, put the people together that can do it, go out and do it, go here, and then your yield is on the far end, somewhere down there, maybe if we did it right way back here and put all of this together. If you want to reach the people, go to the people who do it on an everyday, every weekend, Mojam Mondays, whatever it is, Thursdays at the High Dive, whatever it is, Fridays at the Sea Monster, because these guys touch the people every day. So even if you're a smaller company with a smaller budget, but you want some original music, you should be looking to Grace Love and the True Loves for some soul music. They're on the cover of the City Arts magazine this month. Y'all don't think Grace need a little of that corporate money in her pocket? And y'all don't think those customers want to hear a little bit of that soul that Grace and Jimmy James and the Funk Scribe is putting down? I'm telling you they do. Why? Because I've seen it. Because I've been there when they planned. And you know what? I looked for pictures. There was supposed to be one other slide in here. Because I wanted people to see what I see when I'm on stage, right? And that's somebody grooving with their eyes closed. That's somebody snapping their finger. That's somebody that's gone. Because that right there, I guarantee you, if you can touch that part of the person, they will click like. They will share it. Because the way I keep up with Seattle when I ain't here, I know this brother right here, he's at the show and he's going to put something up and I get to see my people and we get to connect. And I'm telling you, that can happen, but it has to be a conscious decision. It's not a last minute thing. It's not after we've thought of everything, not a last minute, let's put something together. Now, how did this manifest itself? In Instagram. What we do now on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, any of the other little social networks that we're using at this point, we usually just put the same thing. I have a flyer, I throw it up on Instagram, I throw it up on Facebook, I throw it up on, because these are the tools that we use, right? But people don't use Instagram like they use Facebook. People want to see pictures. People want to see things. People want something they can come to. So you do that there. Then you go on SoundCloud and give them a piece of the audio. Then you tell the story of how the record was made on Facebook. Then you put the record out and then somebody writes about it in a blog and then you tell that story. It's an experience. Artists are the architects of experience. And so when I say that now is the time when everybody in the creative company can do their part and make it. If you ain't going to my man Kirk, he's a movement maker. I was telling somebody earlier about the 48-hour film festival. I hadn't even heard of a 48-hour film festival before then, before he said it, before he was putting it on. 11 years later, how many teams? 84 teams. You don't think he knows how to touch people? You don't think he knows how to reach people? Psh, come on, man. And they're out here all over. I could tell you many, many stories. And I'm saying it takes a little bit of creative thinking on the part of everybody to make it happen. So that's really what I came to say, man. My call to action is filmmakers, musicians, artists, stand up, put your storytelling skills to the table. To my people who are in charge of budgets that want to reach people and you put it out there like we fishing. And sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't. Go to the experts. That's what they do, and I guarantee you they can make it happen, and I guarantee you that it will not only grow and enhance and develop this creative community, it will evolve the way creative communities across the country work. You know what I'm saying? Because it will then feed back into itself, because I guarantee you more money in the creative economy means more product coming out, means more shows, means more creative collaborations, and all of that we can take advantage of. So I leave you with this dude right here. This is who I answer to, right? Because I feel like, I don't even remember taking this picture. You want to talk about social networking? This is one of the first pictures somebody else put up of me on Facebook. I was like, oh, that's me in the suit, okay. Yeah, was that? Nah, MySpace, man. Woo. But anyway, we ain't gonna even talk about them poor fellas. But this right here is who I answer to. So when those kids used to say his glasses was so thick they could see the future, hey man, who knew they was right? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Winfield Ezell Jr., for sharing your thoughts on content. Thank you all.